I am newly divorced, and it kind of came out of left field. I hadn't expected it, and to be honest, it kind of shattered my self-confidence. And so after decades of being married, I am now single and entering the dating world. The last time I asked a woman out, I called her on a landline, and that's how long ago this was. And so as I now prepare myself to find a soulmate in this era of apps and Zoom, I was remembering something that I've had for decades that reminds me of a time when I actually had a pretty successful social life and love life. And so I went onto my computer and I asked AI, find a PDF of what looks like a scan of notebook paper with handwriting on it that could be a diary. And AI comes back to me with nothing. So it appears I have deleted this file. Let me take a second and go backwards in time to explain exactly what I was looking for. It's 1987. I'm working at the grocery manufacturer. I'm 25 years old. I'm living in a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate. His name is Howard. And Howard was brilliant. He had graduated from Princeton and was a real academic. His area of studies was American history. And we shared a lot of things in common. We liked the same movies, democratic politics. It made sense for us to live together. So I remember one day where I heard this exultant cry coming from his room. And I went back to find out what was going on. And he hands me this book that he was reading. And the book was James M. McPherson's Battle Cry of Freedom, which was then just published, and now it's a classic about the Civil War. And he showed me that his senior thesis from Princeton had been quoted in the book. And he had been totally unaware of this. So it was a moment of complete surprise and unalloyed joy. And I couldn't have been happier for him. But there were some moments when we were living together that weren't so joyful, that were kind of, let's call them yellow flags, that made me wonder or question our living arrangement. One time, Howard put his hand or fist through a glass cabinet in our kitchen. And I know this because I got a call from the emergency room at Georgetown University Hospital. They called me and asked me if I could come pick him up, which I did. And I truly believed at the time that it was an accident. And I should add that at that time, I was dating a woman, and her name was Juliet. And she happened to be, of all things, a med student. So Juliet was beautiful. She was funny. She was smart. I think that the name Juliet was, so cosmically appropriate for her. She was in med school in Atlanta at Emory, and I was living in Washington, D.C. So whenever we did get together, we would totally maximize that time that we spent with each other. And I remember one night where Juliet and I were out at at Trax, which was a wonderful nightclub in Southeast DC. It's now been gone for many years. But the two of us were outside and we were dancing to New Order's Bizarre Love Triangle. The snow was coming down, and it was coming down on us like confetti. We were having just the best time of our lives. It was sublime. Before we would go out sometimes, Juliet, Howard, and I would, sit around and kind of pregame. And I remember one night in particular, we were sitting in our living room, And we were all drinking a beer, and then all of a sudden I heard this strange sound, and it was gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. And I look over, and Juliet looks over, and Howard is sitting there, and he had taken his beer, turned it upside down, and poured it out onto his lap. So no warning, no explanation whatsoever, just beer in lap. And it was at that moment that Juliet and I decided that we should be leaving. Let's fast forward a couple of months, and I'm at home in the apartment, and Howard's out, but I'm there with my best friend in the world, Bill. And Bill needed to write something down. And just for anyone, I don't really see anybody too young here, but for the kids here, back in the day, we couldn't just send ourselves a note or email ourselves because we didn't have phones. We had to actually write things down on pieces of paper. So Bill asked, do you have a pen? Do you have paper? I said, go back into Howard's room. He's the studious one. He has notebooks all over the place. So once again, I hear another cry coming from Howard's room, but this isn't the jubilant, exultant cry of the battle cry of freedom cry. This is a more kind of urgent, get in here right now cry. So I go back there and I'm like, Bill, what's going on? And he hands me a notebook. What am I looking at? And he says, just read this. So I look and I notice that it's Howard's handwriting, and I see it's kind of cryptic. It's dates and times and then lines of text. And so I start to read. It's June 12th, 10:47 p.m. Alan and Juliet fuck for a second time tonight. They're talking, but I can't make out what they're saying. There's some laughter. Okay, I read the next line. June 13th, 1:47 p.m. Alan and Juliet wake up from a nap, have sex, and then they start talking. So I look at Bill looks at me, and we're like, holy shit. And I have two thoughts that immediately flash into my mind. The first, this is sick. I have a roommate who is keeping a diary of me. And it's not just a diary, it's a sex diary. There's no like, oh, Alan and I went to the Smithsonian today, or Alan said something incredibly smart or funny. It was a very exacting enumeration of all of my sexual encounters. And it is clear from what I'm reading that he is definitely standing with his ear pressed to the door while it's closed and while I'm with someone. The second thought I had is, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, how many people have their sexual exploits recorded for them so meticulously? Oh my God, this is so cool. And I'm thinking, an accounting like this might come in handy someday. So I did what any red-blooded American 25-year-old male would do. I took that notebook and went straight down to my office and Xeroxed every single page. And then I took it back and I returned it to where Bill had found it, and I left it there. I never said anything about it. So I'm thinking, and for those of you keeping score here, number 1, hand through glass. Number 2, beer in lap. Number 3, crazy sex diary. For me, that was the roommate equivalent of 3 strikes. But I was out. I was out of there. I left and moved into a 1-bedroom apartment by myself. I got smart in Glover Park. So now it's 4 decades later, and I'm back living in a 1-bedroom in Glover Park. And I'm starting to date, and it's a pretty daunting idea. And so, to build up my self-confidence, I think, why don't I pull out that old crazy sex diary from 40 years ago and check it out? Back when I was doing pretty well. So, of course, as you know now, I couldn't find it. I must have deleted it. And actually, it's probably a good thing, because I should be looking forward and not focused on what happened in the past. And right now, I am taking writing classes. I'm standing on a stage telling stories. I am journaling. So I am the one who is now keeping a diary of me. And while my love life isn't exactly something to write home about right now, I am living a life and writing a story that's definitely worth holding on to. Thank you.